Chapter 2 of The Mystery of Edwin Drood. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Alan Chant. The Mystery of Edwin Drood, the unfinished novel by Charles Dickens. Chapter 2. A Dean, and a Chapter also. Whosoever has observed that sedate and clerical bird, the rook, may perhaps have noticed that when he wings his way homeward towards nightfall, in a sedate and clerical company, two rooks will suddenly detach themselves from the rest, will retrace their flight for some distance, and will there poise and linger, conveying to mere men the fancy that it is of some occult importance to the body politic that this artful couple should pretend to have renounced connection with it. Similarly, service being over in the old cathedral with the square tower, and the choir scuffling out again, and divers venerable persons of rook-like aspect dispersing, two of these latter retrace their steps and walk together in the echoing close. Not only is the day waning, but the year. The low sun is fiery, and yet cold behind the monastic ruin, and the Virginia creeper on the cathedral wall has showered half its deep red leaves down on the pavement. There has been rain this afternoon, and a wintry shudder goes among the little pools on the cracked, uneven flagstones, and through the giant elm trees as they shed a gust of tears. Their fallen leaves lie strewn thickly about. Some of these leaves, in a timid rush, seek sanctuary within the low-arched cathedral door, but two men coming out resist them, and cast them forth again with their feet. This done, one of the two locks the door with a goodly key, and the other flits away with a folio music-book. "Mr. Jasper, was that, Tope?"
"Yes, Mr. Dean."
"He has stayed late."
"Yes, Mr. Dean, I have stayed with him, your Reverence. He has been took a little poorly."
"Say taken, Tope, to the Dean." The younger rook interposes in a low tone with this touch of correction, as who should say, "You may offer bad grammar to the laity, or the humbler clergy, not to the Dean." Mr. Tope, chief verger and showman, and accustomed to be high with excursion parties, declines with a silent loftiness to perceive that any suggestion has been tendered to him. "And when and how has Mr. Jasper been taken? For, as Mr. Crisparkle has remarked, it is better to say taken." "Taken?" repeats the Dean. "When and how has Mr. Crisparkle been taken?"
"Taken, sir,"
Tope deferentially murmurs. "Poorly, Tope?"
"Why, sir, Mr. Jasper was that breathed—"
"I wouldn't say that breathed, Tope," Mr. Crisparkle interposes with the same touch as before.
"Not English. To the Dean."
"Breathed to that extent?" The Dean, not unflattered by this indirect homage, condescendingly remarks, "would be preferable."
"Mr. Jasper's breathing was so remarkably short."
Thus discreetly does Mr. Tope work his way round this sunken rock.
"When he came in, that it distressed him mightily to get his notes out, which was perhaps the cause of his having a kind of fit upon him after a little. His memory grew dazed." Mr. Tope, with his eyes on the Reverend Mr. Crisparkle, shoots this word out, as defying him to improve upon it. "And a dimness and giddiness crept over him as strange as ever I saw, though he didn't seem to mind it particularly himself. However, a little time and a little water brought him out of his daze."
Mr. Tope repeats the word and its emphasis with the air of saying,
as I have made a success, I'll make it again."
"And Mr. Jasper has gone home quite himself, has he?" asked the Dean.
"Your Reverence, he has gone home quite himself, and I'm glad to see he's having his fire kindled up, for it's chilly after the wet, and the Cathedral has both a damp feel and a damp touch this afternoon, and he was very shivery."
They all three looked towards an old stone gatehouse crossing the Close, with an arched thoroughfare passing beneath it. Through its latticed window a fire shines out upon the fast darkening scene, involving in shadow the pendant masses of ivy and creeper covering the building's front. As the deep cathedral bell strikes the hour, a ripple of wind goes through these at a distance, then a ripple of the solemn sound that hums through tomb and tower, broken niche and defaced statue, in the pile close at hand. "Is Mr. Jasper's nephew with him?" the Dean asks.
"No, sir," replied the Verger, "but expected. There's his own solitary shadow betwixt his two windows, the one looking this way, and the one looking down into the High Street, drawing his own curtains now."
"Well, well," says the Dean, with a sprightly air of breaking up the little conference, "I hope Mr. Jasper's heart may not be too much set upon his nephew. Our affections, however laudable in this transitory world, should never master us. We should guide them, guide them. I find I am not disagreeably reminded of my dinner by hearing my dinner bell. Perhaps, Mr. Crisparkle, you will, before going home, look in on Jasper?"
"Certainly, Mr. Dean, and tell him that you had the kindness to desire to know how he was."
"I do so, certainly. Wished to know how he was. By all means, wished to know how he was." With a pleasant air of patronage, the Dean as nearly cooks his quaint hat as a Dean in good spirits may, and directs his comely gaiters towards the ruddy dining room of the snug old red brick house, where he is at present in residence with Mrs. Dean and Miss Dean. Mr. Crisparkle, Minor Canon, fair and rosy, and perpetually pitching himself head foremost into all the deep water running in the surrounding country. Mr. Crisparkle, Minor Canon, early riser, musical, classical, cheerful, kind, good-natured, social, contented, and boy-like. Mr. Crisparkle, Minor Canon and good man, lately coach upon the chief pagan high roads, but since promoted by a patron, grateful for a well-taught son, to his present Christian beat, betakes himself to the gatehouse, on his way home to his early tea. "Sorry to hear from Tope that you have not been well, Jasper." "Oh, it was nothing, nothing. You look a little worn." "Do I? Oh, I don't think so. What is better, I don't feel so. Tope has made too much of it, I suspect. It's his trade to make the most of everything appertaining to the Cathedral, you know." "I may tell the Dean, I call expressly from the Dean, that you are all right again?" The reply, with a slight smile, is, "Certainly, with my respects and thanks to the Dean." "I'm glad to hear that you expect young Drood." "I expect the dear fellow every moment. Ah! He will do you more good than a doctor, Jasper." "More good than a dozen doctors, for I love him dearly, and I don't love doctors, or doctors' stuff." Mr. Jasper is a dark man of some 26, with thick, lustrous, well-arranged black hair and whiskers. He looks older than he is, as dark men often do. His voice is deep and good, his face and figure are good, his manner is a little sombre. His room is a little sombre, and may have had